Senator Blumenthal, does Facebook need to be broken up?
I think that Facebook needs to be broken up. The acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp need to be unwound, and there needs to be Department of Justice scrutiny about appropriate antitrust remedies. And let's remember, being big is not illegal. It's the misuse of that bigness and market dominance, such as Facebook has been doing by acquiring innovative companies before they can really reach maturity, and also copying new technologies so as to stifle competition and innovation. That's why I think the antitrust department of the Department of Justice has to begin an investigation.
So two problems, the way I see it, with the antitrust case for breaking up Facebook. Number one, consumers like it. It's free to use. Engagement is high. Businesses like it. Small businesses like advertising on it. And number two, I mean, isn't it going to be hard for you guys to argue that it's a monopoly, given that it does have competition in most of the areas of its business, from video to advertising?
It commands 80% of the social media revenue right now. It eclipses all of its rivals. It erases competition. And yes, consumers, many of them do like it, but maybe they would like alternatives to Facebook, such as paying fees without advertising, such as greater privacy protections, which right now are totally lacking. So the first step is for the FTC to adopt a really strong remedy as a penalty for Facebook's violation of the 2011 consent order. And that remedy ought to be not only money, $5 billion is barely a tap, not even a slap on the wrist, but also structural remedies that protect privacy and consumers. And second, antitrust scrutiny, such as was done for the telephone companies, for Microsoft. Even though consumers may have liked what they had then, they got something a lot better.
Senator, do we need new laws or changes to antitrust laws to do that?
Great question. Not to do the traditional kind of antitrust enforcement against big tech or a company that is involved in the big tech industry. There's nothing really different inherently about misuse of market dominance, predatory acquisitions, and denial of competition. But there is a new approach that's necessary. In other words, looking not only to price effects, but also to stifling innovation and competition that has other bad effects for consumers. You know, the traditional antitrust approach has been, if there's price gouging, then there's a need for antitrust enforcement. Well, Facebook obviously has no charge to consumers because those consumers are the product that they sell to advertisers, their data and their information.
Senator, is that a political landmine, though? The Democratic Party's already accused of being anti-prosperity and anti-rich. If you go after some of the most successful American companies that consumers love, isn't that a big political risk?
There's no political risk in protecting consumer privacy. There is only political gain, but that's not the reason to do it. It's fundamental to our democracy that consumers be protected against misuse of their data information without their consent. And there's only potential approval for consumers in innovation and greater competition, which gives them more choice and protection. So we're not talking about attacking prosperity or jobs. In fact, increased jobs and greater prosperity in more competition. And really, Facebook here is the only company that we're talking about.
What about Mark Zuckerberg, Senator Blumenthal? I know you've been critical of the power that he's amassed. That was a big theme in the op-ed this morning from Mr. Hughes, the co-founder, that Mark's influence really is staggering, that he controls most of the voting shares, that he accuses the board of just operating as sort of an advisory committee. What do you do about that?
Mark Zuckerberg ought to be held accountable in the penalties for violating the consent decree that the FTC is now considering. I've written a bipartisan letter with my colleague, Senator Hawley of Missouri. There's nothing partisan or even political about antitrust enforcement, about making consumers whole when their rights are violated. And Mark Zuckerberg dominates a company that in turn dominates a market, and he should be held accountable for the violations of Facebook of this consent order that was adopted with Facebook's approval.
Senator Blumenthal, we're watching this market fall pretty hard. The Dow's down 400 points right now. Everybody's wondering if these new tariff hikes are going to go into effect in a few hours, 12:01 a.m. on Friday. Do you support the president taking a harder line by increasing tariff rates as these China trade talks kick off in Washington?
I support a harder line against the Chinese manipulating their currency and stealing our technology and taking our intellectual property and, in effect, manipulating their own economic policies to increase their exports to the United States unfairly and inappropriately. I support that kind of hard line. But the kind of gamesmanship that we're playing right now really worries me. I don't see the end game here in terms of the tit for tat that the president's playing with the Chinese. And it seems like a game of chicken that has certainly roiled the markets, and understandably so.
So you, just to be clear, you support a hard line but not higher tariffs?
I support certainly driving a hard bargain and insisting on fair treatment for our intellectual property, for our currency, for our products sold abroad. We need to insist on a hard line.